Move you guys. Okay. So winning the week. I always joke. I'm joking with some coaches lately that as coaches, right, we're kind of weird and that we avoid the 9 to 5 job, but yet, so we avoid the 9 to 5 so we can work, 8 to 11 p.m., 8 a.m. to 11 p.m. Right. And I would say a lot of coaches that I get to work with, they talk to me about having very little free time, but they're justifying it because I love what I do and I feel like I'm in control of it. I also find that coaches, right, we're working 40, 50, 60 plus hours a week. And I would say the majority of coaches that I talk to tell me that 75%, 50 to 75% easily is on the operational side of things. I believe that there is a totally different approach that I want you to adopt. And what the goal is with this, I mean, I did this last week. I changed a lot of things from last week. I would like to keep doing this every single week. One, so I'm practicing, working on, and simplifying the system that coaches can use to plan a week for, aiming for results. But I also, if this can become a space for you to develop the habit and the strategies to reflect on last week, but then also plan this upcoming week, right? Is that's kind of the aim for this. I'd love for you guys in the chat, those of you that were here, I know some of you were here last week, but any wins from last week? What were the priorities you established or the targets you aimed for? Did you accomplish any of those? You guys can put any of those in the chat. I'd love to see them. What I want to do today, the goal is to try to keep this to 20, 30 minutes because this is how long it really should take you to go through this. Maybe a little bit more explaining on some of these things because I changed a couple things from last week, but the goal is easy to build off of what you did the week before. This is one of the sheets that I sent to you. Have this out and ready to mark this up, or at least, have a sheet of paper or a journal or whatever to mark this up, because this is where I want you to do your planning. I want you to, from now until forever, never go into a week with a blank sheet of paper, right? I want you to get out of your head and to strategically and intentionally we need to figure out what you need to do and what you don't need to do, what needs to end up on your calendar and what doesn't need to end up on your calendar, because there's a lot of things that don't even need to show up, right? So I want you to go into this next week not thinking, oh my gosh, it's overwhelming. I'm creating a to-do list of 75 things. I want you to go into this planning session not thinking of all the things that have to get done. What are the future building key, like if you had to make a list of all the things in that master to-do list that I sent you is kind of a list of all the things that you have to do to operate your program, but there are operational tasks and there are future program building tasks, right? Those are the tasks that I want to key in on and make sure those are getting on your calendar and blocked off and protected and actually getting worked on. Because a lot of times coaches come to me, it's not that they don't know what their goals are, it is they are failing to spend enough time on it. I've said this to a lot of you guys on this call, right? A lot of coaches, they set big goals, and I want you to set big goals, but with big goals, it's not going to happen unless you are intentional about putting enough time and doing the right things at the right time. You know what I'm saying? So, right, that's what I want to focus on with this. Start with number one, right? The game plan. And right, I'm using all these sports terms because obviously, right, we're all coaches, but the game plan. You would, for the most part, as coaches, you're not going into a season with like fingers crossed, I hope we win, right? I mean, you've probably dug in and nailed down what is the plan that we need to do, that we need to execute. We need to make sure we're getting the right people in the right seats, right? Going all in the same direction to win on game day, whatever your game day is, right? for you as coaches, and this is what I didn't include last week that I wanted to make sure that we started with this week. What's the game plan, right? You got a lot of decisions that you have to make on a day-to-day basis, right? How do we know what decisions to make unless you know what you're going for? And ultimately the mission, the vision, right? Your game plan helps dictate the strategy and the path that you're going to take. I have a client that I work with, and this might seem weird, right? But he was optimizing for peace of mind, for rejuvenation time, for focus time, for time with his family, right? That led him to making decisions and being more intentional about what strategies he needed and the path he needed to take when setting up his schedule, right? So first, I mean, these are questions I want you to just journal on. And if you want to, I'd love to see, put in the chat, right? What are some of these things? You already should know this, right? We're 3/4 of the way through the season or through the year, right? And so when I say year, school year, because right over the summer we kind of reset and restart, and you're starting new. But what are the results you're committed to? And even from starting today to June, when your kids go home, or May when your kids go home, right? For the summer, what results are you committed to? Another thing you could look at it from this perspective is, what are you optimizing for? Is again, is it you want to be healthier? Okay. Again, that's a different strategy. It's a different systems. It's different planning. It's, all the things. Is it, that could be a thing that things you can weigh in on, or Keystone Goal, right? I'm all about, those of you that know me, I'm all about Keystone Goals. There's two great books. The Power Habit is one of them. In that book, he talks about keystone habits, right? And keystone habits, or keystone is the stone at the top of the arch that keeps everything together. And if you take that keystone out, the whole thing collapses. And so keystone habit is essentially one habit that holds all of or one goal or one habit that holds everything together. Gary Keller is the other in the book, The One Thing. He asks the questions, what is the one thing that basically, if accomplished, makes everything else easier or irrelevant, right? So the idea of a keystone goal is one target that you could optimize for. And if you accomplished it, it ultimately creates, like, it helps you accomplish everything else you're trying to do. So one of the things, my husband is on this call, actually. One of the things that we used to do, this was a keystone goal. We didn't realize it at the time, but it was amazing when we accomplished this one thing, how much easier it made everything else that we were doing. The keystone goal that we set out, get a commitment on or very shortly after the visit for recruiting purposes. That changed our process, right? Leading up to the visit. That helped us optimize, that we couldn't do everything, right? And then ultimately, these were some of the things that we did. We couldn't keep doing everything. There was about 80% of the stuff that we were doing, we just eliminated or significantly trimmed down, right? With a much bigger goal, there were only certain things that were going to get us there, just trying to get you to think bigger. Don't just think, again, what's right in front of me today that I have to get done. Think bigger. What is one thing you could do? Make that decision that will, help you accomplish everything else you're trying to do. This is going to make it easier to make decisions. It's going to make it easier to make decisions on what to do and also what not to do, because not everything is going to get you to that mission and that goal. Don't just set easy comfort zone goals. What's a big one? What's a big one you can do? That was ours, but we've got to start there. I say this all the time too. I think coaches never accomplish their mission, their vision, their goals because they look at their phones more than they look at their vision. So I wanted to put as the first step, review the game plan, because before you plan, you need to review what it is. What are we after? If you look at your vision, your goals, or whatever you want to call them, every single day, or at least at the beginning of every single week, it will change your to-do list. It will. Look, again, not trying to stay busy. We're trying to accomplish goals and build the future that you want to build. Okay. Second, I think in order to make progress and course correct, right, we've got to watch the game film. So just like you do with your teams, why do we watch game film? We're looking to see, okay, we set out a plan, we practiced the plan, did we execute on the plan, and did we have the right people in the right seats? So this is where your to-do list from last week is the game film. Look at it. Did I spend enough time on the right thing? Or so I mean, here's some journal prompts that I want you to do, is because we got to figure out, are we doing enough of the right things? But pull out that to-do list. And I sent this to you guys all in this email, but it is, right? Is, I think, just, I mean, 5-10 minutes, reflect. It can massively improve your upcoming week. So we're always focused on making progress. But some of these things, what did you make progress on from even last? I mean, I get, right? We're 2 weeks into March. What did you make progress on? And this is trying to get you in a gain, like a growth gain mindset. What do we typically do? Oh, we didn't get that done. Oh, I didn't do that. Or, oh, there's still so far to go before I reach my goals and we get to where we are. This, if you can reflect on and look at what you actually did accomplish, you'll find that you're going to have so much more joy with coaching. It's amazing how much progress you might not even realize you're making, because we're always looking more, we focus more on what didn't get done and what still needs to be done versus what did we actually accomplish, right? So the goal with these questions: what's the progress you made? Huge wins. Are we looking to get by or I guess this was what were some of the wins you got? How could you approach next week if we weren't afraid to fail? And then another great question, based on looking at your to-do list from last week, where can you trim the fat, right? And when I say burn rate, I mean, this could be, maybe you spent too much money last week. Maybe you spent too much time scrolling on social media. Maybe you spent too much time having to answer questions from your new assistant coaches. Whatever it is, you know what I'm saying, is what's the goal and what prevented you in looking at your to-do list from last week? What prevented you from getting there? How can we trim those things? Through awareness is the only way, right? Otherwise, you're going to rinse and repeat the same mistake over and over again. I always kind of give the example of that movie, Bill Murray, Groundhog's Day, right? Is he goes through the same day over and over and over again until he starts learning, right? And through that, the learning process and reflecting on what happened, he was adjusting, course correcting, and tweaking, right? And then eventually he kind of got himself out of the pattern, right, that he was in. But where can you, based on what you did last week, where could you raise the floor, right, on the standards or on the quality of the work that you did or the amount of time you spent on certain things? 5 to 10 minutes of reflection can 5x, 10x the quality of next week. Okay, as long as we're not making the same mistakes over and over again. Okay, so this, you could journal about this on the bottom as you're planning the next week, so we're not making the same mistakes, right? So third, set your targets based on the mission. What are small little things that we can do this week to get us a step closer, right? This is, and I say targets, goals are something we see, they're out there. Eventually, right? Maybe we'll accomplish them. Target is something to aim for. A target is objective. It is something that you either hit it or you don't hit it. And if we don't hit it, or we hit it or we don't hit it, based on the feedback, now we can course correct. We can do more of something. We can do less of something. We can stop doing something. We need to maybe start doing things, or you know what? We're hitting our goals. We just continue doing what we're doing. but it's hard to know that unless you set targets for the week. So for example, one target could be get your work done by 5:30, Monday through Friday. One could be scheduling 5 campus visits this week. One could be create 10 new recruits, new prospects from Instagram or whatever. Just examples of different targets that you could hit, because these are things, again, you'll either do it or you won't do it. Okay. But based on your mission and where you're trying to go and what are you trying to accomplish, even by the end of the month, what makes sense could be number of phone calls. It could be communication, the amount of communication that you're giving to your current team. It could be a social media thing, could be recruiting, whatever it is, right? It could be you get 30 kids into your summer ID camp, whatever it is, right? But just set targets for this week based on what you've already established. This is the mission we're trying to accomplish. This week, this is one little step that I can do to make progress towards that big mission. You guys got those things? Once you got your targets, I'd love for you, those are paying attention and not multitasking with your camera off in the background, put those targets into the chat so we can see what those things are. I'd love to see them. Okay, next, let's get out of your head all of the things that have to get done. Okay, do a brain dump. Get, whether it's a piece of paper or what I like doing is having one place. This was my central planning system. One master to-do list. What are all the things that you have to do as a coach, right? And then on this list, on this, so which ones are you responsible for? What do you have your assistants responsible for? If you have assistant coaches that are helping you out. This was a way for me to never forget what needed to get done. This is something, and my husband, if he pops on, he could tell you this. When we first moved to Youngstown State, I created a preseason master to-do list. There were 5 of us there, right? One had been there, the grad assistant had been there. The other, or 4 of us there, 3 of us were brand new to that program that season. We cranked out organizing and planning and established who was responsible for what was the process, what was the information that we needed within less than an hour. And I would say 30 minutes of that hour, if you knew the staff at Youngstown State at the time, was mostly BSing, right? So we were able, you can establish real quick what has to get done, and you can give people an entire month's worth of to-dos, but you got to look ahead. You can't just keep your blinders on and focus on what do I have to do today? What are the fires I'm putting out today? That's why, again, coaches struggle building a program, is because you're just focused on what do I got to do today? Think ahead. This is a list that will help you think ahead, but you got to get it out of your head and onto paper. As you're doing these things, right, categorize it. Which of the tasks are program building? Which ones are daily operations? Remember I said earlier, most coaches focus on 50 to 75% of their day is spent just on operating the program, right? This is where if I don't want every day, every minute of every day sucked up into just operating the program. So make sure that you've got tasks in this, right? The box on the left for program building activities, but separate it, okay? Once and I know I'm going through this quick, but still, I mean, hopefully these are things as you get into a rhythm of doing things this way, right? This will make sense and this will be easy to kind of work through. But next, after you've got your brain dump of all the things that could get done this next week, we got to choose which are the ones that are going to give us the biggest bang for the time we put in. Those, again, are program building activities. What are those activities? Isolate those. Some ideas. Okay. And I had some questions from coaches last week. Well, give me some examples of some priorities, how I could set these priorities, or where do I get these examples? Think one, I've already said this multiple times, program building. What is one thing that would elevate your mission, your vision, your goals, right? What's one thing? One thing could be a priority, could be personal growth, right? What are the tasks? Who are the people you could interview? What are the books you're going to read? What are the videos you're going to watch or whatever? But that could be a priority that will help elevate your mission in your career, right? Personal development. A third could be, I mean, I had to stick this one in there just because, right? Operational efficiency. What could you do this week and basically you're asking yourself the question, what could I set up? What process could I set up this week that would make all of the rest of the weeks of the year easier, right? What's one thing we could set up? Like we went again with my husband, we had he was out doing a camp. Our other assistant was out doing a camp when we were at University of South Dakota. And I had to do a campus visit, and I had done campus visits at all the other programs that I'd been at, but it had been a minute. As a head coach, I had delegated that to those two. They weren't there. Well, I did it with a lot of swearing and a lot of, looking and wasting time trying to find all the things that they had set up. Needless to say, the visit was not done well, and there was a lot of things missed. There was a lot of stress and overwhelm and frustration. Well, we set up one procedure with all the things that I did. When they got back, they helped me fill in the gaps of all the things that we missed. And then because everything was now out of our head and onto paper, we could evaluate it from a quality perspective. What was going well? What was taking too long? What do we not need to do anymore? Right? But we had listed everything on this one standard operating procedure. Now, when we had a new assistant come on, one left and one came on, all he had to do was, and because it was on the master list and attached, all he had to do was go to the document and follow it step by step. So that one thing created made all of the other, no matter who was on campus and scheduling a visit, we could do it without needing to ask a million questions and without forgetting steps. And the quality was high. You know what I'm saying? That could be a priority. But again, as you are thinking through what for this next week, whatever you guys have going on, what are 3 priorities that you have that by the end of the week, if you got these done, right, we'd be doing fist pumps and you'd feel like you made progress and you were in control of the week. Then we got to block off the time, right? If you show up with an empty calendar, very rarely will, even though you have the best intentions, right? How little do, I mean, other things happen and you get pulled away, right? So a few things to think about, right? So you've got your targets that you're aiming to hit. Is there, so again, thinking about the question, what could I do to make this easier? I found that for me, Mondays were administration. So that master to-do list, all of the administrative tasks, I just batched it all and did it on Monday. I was able to cruise through things so much quicker. Tuesdays for me were recruiting. Okay, so what are my objectives? This is when, based on all the things I have to do, this is the best day and time for me to work on those things, you know? So with these targets that you established, right, well, so let's first do this, is I want you to think, right on that sheet, when are you waking up? Do you have a consistent wake up time? Write that down. Then when are you going to bed? At the Greens, we try to go to bed. We start at least trying to go to bed about 9, right? So when are you waking up? When are you going to bed? We're trying to put some boundaries in there, okay? And then third, when are the important things you need to do? And I just filled in Monday, but what are the important things you need to do? When are you working out, right? It's hard to continue to lead consistently at a high level if you're burnt out and exhausted, okay? When are you taking care of the things that you need to do? When are you resting and recharging your batteries? When are your kids, family things? When are those things happening? Now, again, I just filled in Monday, but when are those things happening during the week? Put that in there. A lot of coaches, they tell me, man, my coaching schedule is bleeding into everything else and I don't have time for my own hobbies and my own family. Put it on the schedule first. Okay. And I'll tell you in a minute how you can get more things done that way. And you're going to be happier and healthier. Right. But put that stuff in there. And then, the dogs, I got to put the dogs in there. Um, the next key thing I put in here, because this was one of my targets, work stop time. Work stop time also for me is a keystone habit. Number one thing that takes care of a lot of other things. When I decided at the beginning of the week when I was going to be done working that day, what I found is that I focused more. I didn't get distracted as much. I couldn't do everything. So I had to really prioritize what I was doing and when I was doing it, right? It just kept me moving with more urgency and I got things done. I mean, anybody who worked with me in any of the schools that I worked at probably would tell you Mandy is not the most sociable. Yep. Because when I'm at work, I got to work and I got to get these things done because I want to be able to go home and do these other things. But you see what I'm saying? It's just like, when are your, like, when is practice? When is weights? When are some of these immovable meetings that you might have? Fill that in on this sheet. And then what time do you have left? Big blocks of time do you have to get work done? And then I want you to plug in when, because would you agree, not all tasks are created equal and not all time is created equal. In the big blocks of time that you have left after all of these things have been planned in here, when are you intentionally blocking off high priority, high value tasks that are going to help you take steps closer to accomplishing your mission? When on your schedule, you know about yourself, you have the most energy and the most focus. That's when the magic can happen. You don't have to have all day, every day. So, like for me, 8 to 10 in the morning, and probably even like 7:30 to 10 in the morning for me, that's when I am usually most focused, most productive. So this is when, if I were to map this out for the entire week, this is when I'm doing things for Busy Coach for the most part. Okay. And then, I mean, I don't have all day, every day planned, but I've got boundaries and I've got the big tasks blocked off, and intentionally I am working on these things at these times. And again, the key is when I get interrupted the least, because you could have some of these things blocked off, but if it is at a time when you're getting interrupted a lot, we got to make some adjustments on that, right? Maybe, I mean, there were times where I used to work out of my house instead of going into the office. I knew that was a key time for me and I was going to get interrupted. So go to a coffee shop, work out of your house or something, disappear. Because I get with your teams, we're trying to be available at all times and be there for your athletes. I get that. But you also have a program to run and, right, a job to keep. And you're probably not going to keep your job if you're only doing busy work and being there for your team. You know what I'm saying? So it's when can we be intentional about blocking some of these things off? And then once this thing is filled, and this, like for me, 10 to, 4-ish, I'm still getting things done, right? But this is the time I'm being very intentional about doing the work that's going to help me progress. There's a lot of other things that I still get done during the day, but it's amazing how much more control and less stressed I am when I know these big things are getting done, right? Once you've established kind of the week, what are the things I want you to kind of triage your calendar? What should you keep on when it's all mapped out like this? What should you keep because you love it, right? Or it's something you're getting evaluated from your administrator by the end of the year, right? You got to keep some of those things. What could you trim? Like one of the things for me that I could trim, like most of 10 to 4 every day, I'm on calls with coaches. Now, I mean, do I allow an hour? Yep. But could I start trimming that? I could. That's one thing that I could trim, right? I could maybe trim my workouts. I'm not trimming the dog walks, right? Because that causes all sorts of other problems with their energy and they would irritate me, right? But like looking at your calendar and the meetings you have, what meetings could you trim? They don't need to be an hour. We could do that in 30 minutes. We could do it in 45 minutes. What are the, just different things. Look at your calendar and what are you doing throughout the week? What could you shrink to free up time? Because right? It's hard to build momentum on certain things if we're not giving it enough time. How are you going to get time? Take things off, right? So that's one of my next one. Are there things on your to-do list that you could transfer to other people? Delegate it to somebody else. One of the first things I always go to, those of you that are head coaches on here, you should not be doing database entry ever, right? I get some of you don't have assistant coaches, so you might have to do it, but don't ever do it. You can find work study kids, even if you got to pay. I mean, there's so many people that you could hire for like $5 an hour. That is money well spent, because that time, how much time does it take you to do database entry, right? A ton. Imagine what you could do with that time if you didn't have to do that task. Okay. Or again, what is on your calendar once you fill this thing out? You don't need to be even doing. You don't. Okay. But trim, treasure, trim, transfer, and trash. Triage, like your list. Once you have it, you'll be amazed at how much time you can find. Okay. But try that. And on the list on the side, it takes you through, walks through, right, what to put on there and when to put on there. But then ultimately, you got to see what time you have left, right? And put in the big things. You're welcome, again, to send me this. A lot of you sent me your list from last week. Loved it, right? Keep sending it and we can give you different ideas and feedback on things to keep adjusting with your schedule. Other good things, right? Once you've got your list kind of set, go through these things. When is your energy good, right? So if you look at this, for me, Mondays, Tuesdays, I was always much better. I put the good stuff in there first and put the most important work early in the week, but you got to do you, right? If you're better off at the end of the week, then maybe you're pushing your most important stuff off to the end of the week. For me, Monday, Tuesday. And then my energy kind of went, and we had more games towards the end of the week. So when I did that early in the week, now I could feel good. That stuff is done. And then I could focus more on game related stuff as we went towards the end of the week, but just different things to use to filter your schedule and how it's set up. Again, what shouldn't be on your calendar, what, should be on it, but it isn't. All these are great questions to kind of go through as you're evaluating your week this next week. But then ultimately, okay, so it's vision. It is, it's vision. It's reviewing what went well, what didn't go well last week. What new targets am I going to try to hit based on the vision we're trying to accomplish? It is, what are all the things I have to do? And then what can I prioritize? Intentionally schedule it, right? And then we got to get after it. You got to do the work, right? And execute on the plan. Go through the week and just be making notes. What's working? What's not working? Where am I getting stuck? I want you to think like problems are actually a positive thing if you see it as a positive thing, because now we can make adjustments, The last thing I'll suggest is, could you have a Monday morning huddle with your staff? So you establish kind of the plan for the week, communicate that with your staff, but review the vision. If I were to go into any of your offices, those of you that have assistant coaches, would they know? Could they tell me, like on the spot, what the goals were that week or the vision that you're trying to accomplish? I ask that because I know most coaches, right? We set the vision when we're trying to get hired, or we set the vision at the beginning of the year, and then that sucker goes into your computer in a file, or it goes into a drawer and you never look at it again. Are you reviewing it? Monday morning, review it. This is what we're working on this week. These are the priority. This is my priority. This is Dan's priority. This is Nick's priority. This is Josh's priority, right? This week. So if you are the leader of the group, right? if you have other people establishing and committing to their priorities, now you have something to hold them accountable to, but also you can check in to make sure that they're focused on the right things. But you just, and this is like a 10-minute meeting. This isn't a sit down. Don't sit down and get comfy. 10 minutes, stand up, walk through it, just quick, right? Results. What are the results that we're getting this week? Numbers we're trying to hit, obstacles preventing us from making progress, right? 10 minutes, quick meeting, establish priorities, right? And then off you go. But I find those that have been consistently doing this process, they're getting time back, right? They're more aware and they're clear on what their priorities are. And it's amazing how much stupid stuff just falls off their to-do list. They don't even need to do it anymore because they're seeing so much progress on key 20% of things. They're focused on those things and they've been able to drop a lot of the 80% of things that are more fluff, right? They're not getting you the results that you need. But it's just week after week, right? It's not gonna magically in 1 week be perfect. Every week is gonna be different. And so every week you probably need to set new targets and new goals and new meeting, keep meeting and checking in. How's it going? What's throwing you off? What worked well, what didn't work well, like all those things. But winning the week. Again, those of you that are still on, I'd love to put in the chat, like, or if you want to talk through it, questions you have, things that you've tried that worked really well, things that you've tried that maybe we need to brainstorm some different ideas of things to maybe change and tweak a little bit. What do you think? Questions or feedback, or what are you going to work on this next week?
I've got a question that might not, just a quick one, might not relate to everyone else, but we're going into spring break next week. So coaches are kind of splitting up, doing their own thing. How can we stay focused on, and definitely I think the Monday huddle. But when we have a break like that, what can we do to give coaches the space they need for that week before we gear up, but also stay focused on our goals?
Yeah, no, Nick, that's a great question. I think, today, right, is everybody's last day in the office. Do you guys have a track meet this weekend or no?
Yeah, track meet, high school meets we're hosting today and tomorrow.
Yeah. Even if it is, even just a Monday morning meeting ideally, you and Andrew and whoever else, right, you can get together today and talk through, again, big picture. This is what we're trying to hit, and kind of establish some of those things, even do it together as a group. And then do your meet, and then maybe Monday you meet virtually. And are you guys all coming back into the office next week, or like people?
No, we're actually going on trips. Yeah.
Yeah. So I would say maybe a Monday virtual meeting,
Right.
again, real quick, just to establish, again, big picture. These are the priority. These are the things I'm committed to accomplishing this week. These are the numbers we're trying to hit. And then, some of that kind of stuff I find you can just do virtually. And then you're giving each other the space throughout the week to do what they need to do.
Yeah.
And, you could even do an end of the day. Like I've had some coaches establish like a Slack account or just even a group text where this is what I accomplished at the end of today. This is the progress that I made on my priorities. So it's kind of a checking in, and this is where I had some issues, but space during the day to rest and recover, or hey, I'm taking the day off. You know what I'm saying? But it's just morning, one meeting before you guys leave for spring break, and then maybe Monday morning. And then you decide if it's end of each day or if it's just look, end of the week, let's meet again and kind of regroup going into when all the athletes are coming back type thing. But it just depends on, right, if it's how many staff are involved here and what are you trying to get done for the week. Maybe it is a rest, and when we're not working with our athletes on these trips, right? We're just kind of resting and recovering and, some of the things. Just kind of
Yeah.
depends on what you guys want to do, you know?
It helps, yeah.
Great question. What else? Anything else? But I mean, just helpful. Just get you thinking. I'm just trying to up your awareness of things and not just, again, show up and let your inbox tell you what to do. Because usually that is a place that isn't focused on making progress. That is just keeping up, keeping your head above water is usually your inbox, or it's other people asking you to do things, is let's get out ahead, proactively plan a lot of these things. It will really help. But I will send you this recording once it gets processed and uploaded, and I'll send you the slides so you have this process and resend some of that stuff that I sent earlier. If you want to set up a meeting and talk through some of these things or send me the things you're sending out, just reach out and let me know. Sound good? All right. Well, I will let you guys go. You guys have a great rest of the week and the weekend. And yeah, maybe we'll again try to have this again next Friday, and we'll keep updating and trying to simplify and keep getting you this information you guys need to hopefully keep focused on making progress. So have a great weekend, and we'll talk again soon.